Welcome into the PHNX Cardinals podcast, presented to you by the DraftKings Sportsbook app, America's top-rated sportsbook. Be sure to like and subscribe. Leave us a 5-star wherever you get your podcast. I'm Johnny Venable. He's Bo Brock live at the PHNX headquarters in downtown Phoenix. We are in a new era, Bo Brock, of Arizona Cardinal football, as you, as well as the many Valley media members, had the opportunity to speak directly today with new Arizona Cardinal GM Monti Ossenfort. And man, where do we begin? Tons of sound bites, but your overall general impression of the Cardinals' new executive in charge of the team.
Monty, right? The full Monty, Ozzy. I don't know which direction you want to go with the Cardinals GM, but you've got this a little bit of hype surrounding this guy. I think that he won the press conference today, and here's a couple things as far as the main takeaways for Monti Ossenfort's introductory presser is that you can be excited about the future of the Arizona Cardinals and then also think probably not going to involve Sean Payton. I think those are the takeaways I got from today's press conference, his availability with us today, speaking on many subjects, you know, whether it's DeAndre Hopkins, whether it's the next head coach, Kyler Murray, team building, you know, his philosophies, where he kind of learned those philosophies, a whole lot about Monty. We got the full Monty, and I'm excited about it.
Yeah, he was impressive. I know a lot of people were, I don't want to call it taking shots, but they were like, man, he looks nervous. And I'm just like, I don't really care. He's not leading the 53-man roster. He's picking the players, right? Mm-hmm. And I think he will be impressive behind the scenes. Not that he wasn't impressive today, but for people who are going to act like maybe they wouldn't be nervous, you know, as the new GM, he admitted, I've never been a general manager before. I've been waiting for this opportunity. This is why you work in this injury to get to this point. This is all new to him, especially when you think about, Bo, like Steve Keim had this press conference in 2013. He had been around the franchise for 15 plus years. This is new to him. He just met Michael Bidwell like last week, if not, you know, previously. He just met Michael Bidwell's family today. He had an opportunity to connect with Budda Baker. So I'm always going to give the GM, especially the GM over the head coach, the benefit of the doubt that they're going to be nervous. But listen, he hit all the right beats with me. He didn't neglect Kyler Murray or any singular player. But again, it's obvious they're not going to cater to any one player. And if your criticism of this franchise was that they were maybe too player friendly, that they weren't buttoned up, which is not, you know, that's not speculation. That's fact. They were in the news for all the wrong reasons. They are trying to clean up this mess figuratively and literally on and off the field. And all his responses today echo that.
Right. I mean, as nervous as he was, and I can absolutely, I guarantee, he does seem like a very nervous Nelly up there. But at the same time, his answers, it didn't affect or impact his ability to give you solid answers and solid ways that this organization can find its way through this. Find its way out of the mud right now and get back on track. I mean, you have to really like what he had to say about most of the things he talked about. I mean, I got to shake his hand. He would when people would ask questions, they would say their name, their affiliation, and then they repeat their name back to him. Like, I mean, you have to like the individual right off the bat. Shook his hand to kind of back up how nervous he was. It was one of the sweatiest hands I've ever shook in my life. And that's not a knock on the guy. It's just, you know, I mean, he was going through it. It was probably the first time he's gone through it. You know, he's been a behind the scenes guy. He's never been at the forefront of things. He's put 22 years of his life into this. And this is the moment he's been waiting for. And I don't anticipate him dropping the ball at all. I think that he's going to show this organization how most organizations, successful organizations, are meant to be run for the first time in a long time.
I put out a tweet and I got some snarky responses, but I echoed kind of your sentiments because it's obvious when he was responding to media members, he would say, nice to meet you, repeat their name back. Yeah. And it may seem like the bare minimum, like in your workplace, you're respectful, right? And you make eye contact with people. But I don't want to talk about Steve Keim more than we have to, but I feel like today is a good day to kind of compare and contrast. Like Steve Keim, especially with ex-players, was not well respected. And say what you want about Steve, he had a reputation that was going sour around the league fast for his conduct off the field and his relationships or lack thereof. This guy looks like he's all about relationships. And again, people in the comments saying, well, Johnny has to win games. Absolutely. And we will hold him and the next head coach accountable coming this spring and next fall when the real football work begins. But like, you can blow a press conference. You can't win a press conference and win a Super Bowl in January. But we all remember Adam Gase's press conference when his eyeballs are going, right? We remember who's the GM with the Giants. Gettleman's press conference was a flipping disaster. It was like, I don't care about computers and analytics. Would you rather have that? Give me a guy who's nervous because he takes this shit seriously.
Yeah.
And he respects everybody in the room, no matter if you're his boss, Michael Bidwell, down to the intern, blah, 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 whatever. I was impressed with what I saw from just a respect factor that he gave to everybody in that room.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I completely agree with that. Let's get to our super chat here. Redbirds 224. Trenches, cactus emoji. I'd say the only red flag today is that Monti Ossenfort dropped the cactuses. I said, hey, whoa, it's cacti, sir. You better get used to it.
Hey, cactuses is in the AP style guide as appropriate plural for cactus.
There's Leah dropping some knowledge on us.
I was an English minor.
I gotta flex that journalism degree every once in a while, you know?
Regardless, look, as far as the trenches, you look at the two organizations that he spent the most time in, most recently, Tennessee. They invest, draft capital on both sides of the defensive and offensive lines. Jeffrey Simmons stands out to me on the defensive line for Tennessee. You got on the offensive line, they've got a couple first rounders that they've spent on the O-line. And then you look at, New England, they're notorious for what they like to sink into and where they like to build their teams. And it's right there through the trenches. So that has to get you excited. You have to make the right decisions, though. We heard a lot of things that we liked from Monti Ossenfort. Let's get to a couple of these clips, Johnny, just from the man himself. Let's just talk about or listen to him talk about the rebuild process for the Arizona Cardinals.
Hey, no one here is happy about the results of last year. But it's not too long ago that this team was in very good position. I was witness to it firsthand 2 years ago when this organization came into Tennessee in Nissan Stadium and ran all over us. And that's what we're going to get back to. Our goal here is to win, to build a team that can win the NFC West, to advance in the playoffs, and ultimately for everyone in this organization to enjoy in what it feels like to hold that Lombardi trophy.
Gotta love it.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And frankly, listen, going external, you could have put Mr. Potato Head up there and I would have been eating everything you'd be selling because it's not somebody internally.
Yeah.
It's a franchise, right? You could have put a fucking stuffed animal up there and said, this guy's from Baltimore. I would have been like, fuck yeah, let's do it. I would have been ready to run through a wall if it's, Snuffleupagus up there.
Let's go.
That's right. So again, the bar was low. It's like that meme. It's like the bar was low, but holy fuck. No. They took care of it here. Here's what I will say. That he gave me what I needed today. Is it my first choice? No, I don't really even know what a first choice looks like for a GM. I have a first choice for a head coach, but I do want to pivot quickly because we got some people in the chat because you dropped like a subtle bomb at the beginning of the show, and my guy Bo Brock, he's in the know, and he started this off by saying that you feel like this takes them now with the hiring out of the Sean Payton sweepstakes. Do you care to elaborate on that, Bo Brock?
Yeah, no, I think that it makes, especially this show, it makes you kind of just hit the pause button. It's like, okay, let's see some news. Let's see some news that would push the Sean Payton conversation forward, because right now we're in a holding pattern. And I know it probably came down to the Arizona Cardinals hiring a GM, and I don't want to get into the reports as far as what them hiring a GM and Monti Ossenfort did to their chances as far as Sean Payton. But I think the hiring of Monti Ossenfort and some things that he said today, namely about Brian Flores, made me think, okay, Brian Flores seems to have hurdled Sean Payton, in my opinion, as far as the next head coach potentially for the Arizona Cardinals. We heard from Monti Ossenfort. We didn't hear it during the press conference. This was post-press conference. The media members get to kind of meet him one-on-one, and I got a chance to talk to him. And I asked him if he had really any relationship with Sean Payton, because we were hearing kind of otherwise. They were both kind of guys that came from the Big Tuna, Bill Parcells, where this is what Monti Ossenfort said about Sean Payton.
Sean Payton's a phenomenal coach. He's had a lot of success in this league, but have not crossed paths with him ever.
Hasn't crossed paths with him. And now we're playing the role, probably. We've all been there before, where you have two separate friends that don't know each other, and then you get everybody together and you hope that it works out, but we don't know if they're going to like each other. And that's the big risk, I think, that Michael Bidwell kind of rolled the dice on here, but he rolled the dice on getting the best general manager candidate he felt like he could possibly get. He started there and felt like, okay, I like this guy. A lot of people, he's well respected around the league. He was in the Patriots organization for 15 years. He was with the Tennessee Titans the last 3. Nobody's had anything negative to say about the guy, and he's got to just assume, like, look, if Sean Payton doesn't like Monti Ossenfort, then maybe he's just not the guy for this organization. So, look, I just think that we can probably pause for right now until an interview is reported as far as Sean Payton with the Arizona Cardinals, and then we'll get right back into it.
Right, because I think Sean Payton, he had interest in the Cardinals. Now, has that dwindled? Here's what I don't buy for 1 second. What did you expect Michael Bidwell and company to do? Not interview GMs before he met with Sean Payton? Like, you want them to sit on their hands until they wait their turn in line at the county fair and they get their chance to woo Sean Payton? You want to punt on 10 to 14 days of recruitment? Now, we're just getting word, Bo Brock. The Titans have finalized the hiring of 49er executive Rand Carthon as their new GM. So that's it. There aren't any available GM jobs open. They were all filled at the same amount of time. So I think for people, and I'll put Mike Silver in this because he kind of went on a Twitter rant last night saying that Cardinals are out of it because Sean Payton wants all the power. It's just like, come on. Like, Michael Bidwell is still probably, I think, going to have one-on-one time with Sean Payton if he hasn't had that already. I mean, would it shock anybody if they connected that day for the Fiesta Bowl Saturday in Phoenix? No, that wouldn't shock anybody. And to sit there and say, well, because they hired a GM to, start the process of evaluating their franchise because they didn't want to punt on this time before the Senior Bowl, before the Combine, that they're eliminated from Sean Payton. Would I put them as the favorite? No, but on Vegas, DraftKings still has them as the favorite, plus 350 in terms of the Cardinals, along with Brian Flores. So, people in my comments, everybody's freaking out like we're out of Sean Payton. I know Mike Jurecki put something out there. Just take a second. This is a process. Sean Payton, the jobs that presumably he wanted, they're gone. They're not available. He can go back to Fox. Why? The Cardinals needed a GM. They have to run their franchise.
Right.
They can't now they can slow play this, but spare me for that until, as Bo said, we get definitive news one way or the other. Like, no, they're not going to interview him, or we're going to get an interview scheduled. It's going to be next Wednesday, blah, blah, blah. Just everybody take a deep breath. He's still available.
Yeah, he's still available until he's not. And he's going to take interviews and he's going to sit down. He must have done a virtual interview because he wasn't eligible to do in person until today in Los Angeles with the Denver Broncos. But Adam Schefter reported last night that he done and finished an interview with the Houston Texans. Must have done that virtually. He was just like that's got to be like the least amount of work he's doing on these interviews. He's just going to fire up and jump into a Zoom meeting and just say, hey, nice to meet you. I mean, when you look at the Texans setup, you look at Carolina's setup, he's going to go to New York and meet the Carolina Panthers and talk with their brain trust, Scott Fitterer, and who had hired Matt Rule and is moving off of Steve Wilkes. I just think that when you look at what the Arizona Cardinals have done with the hiring of Monti Ossenfort, it's just as impressive as any of the other openings.
Carolina is in the same division as New Orleans.
Right.
Is New Orleans going to flip Sean Payton in their division so he can beat their ass twice a year? Save me from that. I'm having trouble kind of connecting the dots with that one. And I'm also having trouble connecting the dots, Bo. We talked about this off air. Like, you had a brilliant comparison. Like, is this going to be Joe Gibbs 2.0? If he runs to the Denver Broncos and he has to play Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes twice a year with a wash Russell Wilson and Justin Herbert, who, if they don't win next year, they'll get Herbert a real coach. Like, what I don't really understand all the people that are like, well, he's not interested in the Cardinal job. The Cardinals have the cleanest slate of any of these teams, even with Monti Ossenfort, because Monti has no affinity for these players. I'm sorry. He could gut this 53-man roster tomorrow. So could Sean Payton. And we talked about on yesterday's show, George Patton traded for Russell Wilson. Everything that's going on in Carolina, that regime traded for Sam Darnold. They made those picks. It's still a clean slate. Everybody take a beat.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I mean, the Gibbs, comparison was, Gibbs was away from the game for far longer than just a season, but he was this guy that could do no wrong, right? 3 Super Bowls with not an elite quarterback. He was able to do it with the team, with a complete team. and then he came back to Washington, and it wasn't nearly as much success. But to sit here and say that, look, the Broncos are a far more successful organization because of what they did with John Elway, and then at the end of Peyton Manning's career, what have they haven't done shit since Peyton Manning retired. They've been out of the playoffs. They haven't been in the playoffs since. That's got to be one of the longest streaks in the NFL.
We love DNVR. We love our friends at DNVR.
All they have is deep pockets and Elway highlights. That's it. That's all they have. That's all they've got. And they're going to hang their hat on it. And it's not enough, in my opinion, to lure Sean Payton, according to his reported criteria. So, like, to just take him out because you're learning the name Monti Ossenfort for the first time yesterday, I think that's just rampant speculation, and it's nearly irresponsible.
It's gross. And again, I feel like this is all hyper. Like, let's just everybody take a second. I think this is just a lot of guessing. I feel like can we stop speculating on Vance Joseph? Can we put that to bed? Because Nightingale Sunset said just no Vance, please. Vance still has plus 450 odds on DraftKings. Do you feel like this Monti Ossenfort hiring Bo completely diminishes that opportunity? Because they talked about, like, Vance is going to be the first person they interview.
Yeah,
it sounds like, and then they're going to go from there.
That's confirmed. And when Bidwell said that, I wanted to actually grab the video. And if you look at Monti Ossenfort's face, he's just like, "Okay, yeah, we're going to interview him. Yeah, I'll give your guy, his time. We'll talk to him." But if you're going to talk to Brian Flores, if you're going to set up an interview eventually with DeMeco Ryans, I mean, who's going to stand out in the interview room? Who's going to stand out during the interview process? You think that? I mean, I'll admit during Hard Knocks, but this is relative to Cliff Kingsbury and the rest of the Cardinals organization from this past season. Vance Joseph, no, not even relative to the Cardinals. Vance Joseph is an impressive guy. He is. He really is. He deserves that. But you've seen him as a head coach. You know that there's a ceiling there. It's not going to do anything for this fan base. It's exactly AZ Cards. Is it Nerd 11? No to VJ. I co-sign on that. But I think that they're going to give him the respect of an interview. And I think that as far as the other candidates that they're going to meet with, they're going to do the work for the Cardinals and separate themselves from Vance Joseph in the interview process.
Well, what did Monty say when somebody asked him about, what do you think about like taking over some of this coaching staff or the scout? And he's just like, I haven't even met anybody here yet. Like, I need to go through the process. And that's basically like, I'm sorry, I'm going to get my own people. Don't you, like, if you had complete control, don't you want to work with people you know? You don't want to inherit a franchise that's won 4 games this year and just try to put a Band-Aid on it. If I'm going to go down swinging, if Monti Ossenfort never gets another GM job, Bo Brock, he's going to want to do his best to win right now. And that might seem cliche, but it's like Steve Keim's not getting another GM job. It's not like coaches who get recycled, right? GMs, it's basically almost one and done. So it's like, am I going to put all my eggs in the basket of Vance Joseph? Because I can tell you right now, the next head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, barring something completely unforeseen, is not going one and done. I can almost promise you that. They are going to give this new person at minimum 2 to 3 years. And if you're Monti Ossenfort, is that going to be Vance? No, it's going to be people you trust. And that's, I think, going to bring us to the Brian Flores piece of this, Bo Brock. But before that, I want to get to this. Brett in the chat, thank you so much for the $1.99 super chat. Mr. Morris, didn't Flores mention us in his lawsuit? He did not. Steve Wilkes mentioned the Cardinals in his lawsuit. And again, a lot of people feel like this lawsuit's going to get thrown out anyway. He could opt to throw it out himself. This is still years away from going to court. And listen, Michael Bidwell has an affinity for Brian Flores. Yeah. Bo, you texted me earlier. Reminder, Adrian Wilson has an affinity for Brian Flores. And now the new GM of the Arizona Cardinals, per you, Bo Brock.
Yeah.
Monti Ossenfort. We were connecting the dots yesterday when his odds went from 900 to 350 on DraftKings. Monty has an affinity for Brian Flores.
Yeah. Post-introductory press conference, Monty met with the media, and during one of his conversations with a TV station, it was Fox and Richard Sines, and he asked him about Brian Flores because the two had worked together for over a decade in Foxborough for the Patriots. I mean, they were there a long time working together. And Monty basically said Brian is a special coach. He's going to be a good coach in the future in this league. And he spoke very, very kindly about his former Pats colleague. And that only fueled the fire that we're seeing. People just connecting the dots between those two working together in New England and thinking that they're going to take it out west. I mean, Yeah, there are red flags absolutely about Brian Flores. I mean, you talk about the lawsuit, and then you also talk about his handling of Tua and his relationship that deteriorated with Chris Greer in Miami. No doubt about it. Those are massive red flags, but those are things that can be vetted through the interview process. It's a very simple, conversation that you have, but you don't take anything for granted what he says. You have to figure out whether or not he believes in Kyler Murray, because if he doesn't, there's no reason to continue on or count Brian Flores as a legitimate head coaching candidate if he doesn't believe in Kyler Murray. Like, if he wants to give Kyler Murray tough love, if he wants to be able to MF him and kind of try to, get him in line, absolutely. I don't think anybody would disagree with that. I think that's what a lot of people believe Kyler Murray needs to take the next step. But as far as if he doesn't believe in him, if it's a Tua situation that can quickly sour and he loses faith right out of the gates, it's not going to work for anybody, any side of this thing.
I feel like we're down a path right now, watching that press conference when he's preaching about team above everybody else. And there was that infamous quote that kind of went viral on the Twitter streets today. Ego will not be tolerated. Is that a shot at Kyler Murray? And I don't know if it's a direct shot at Kyler Murray. Here's what I do know. I mean, like, outside of this team imploding, this guy's got as much leash and cachet now as Kyler Murray in this organization, because they could pivot off Kyler Murray in about 18 months to 24 months. And we talked about it. Steve Keim and Cliff Kingsbury were the advocates for Kyler Murray. Michael Bidwell put that clause in his contract. Now they're trying to remedy it, and they should, because Kyler Murray is a phenom. He's an elite player when he's at the top of his game. No one's going to argue that. But we talked about it, Bo, in November. Like, if these guys get fired, Kyler sits around the room. It's like the Will Smith meme. It's like, where did my supporters go? Because Cliff, even though the relationship soured, like, Cliff lobbied for him. Steve Keim took him after trading away Josh Rosen. Like, that's a real thing. Brian Flores and Monti Ossenfort will embrace Kyler Murray, assuming that Brian Flores is the guy, but they have no deep cut allegiance to him.
Sure.
And that's important to say. Like, we'll give him every opportunity to succeed, Michael. We're going to try to make it work, blah, blah, blah. And like, listening to what him saying today, very much the Patriot way, you can tell why Michael Bidwell ate that up. Like, keep me out of the tabloids, keep me out of the news cycle. Yes, we want to win games, but man, we were an embarrassment. We're embarrassing the Valley. We're embarrassing our brand in Mexico City. All this garbage that got out, at minimum, they'll clean that up. And then if they don't get Kyler Murray's buy-in, it's like a quote tweeted today. It's like, that's on Kyler Murray, because he has lost the ability, in my opinion, Bo, to get the benefit of the doubt from the casual fan and or coach, because not this podcast, but there are a lot of people feel like he is an indictment on this job right now.
Right. Well, I think that as far as Kyler Murray goes, he's become more and more of a polarizing figure.
Absolutely.
Beyond this organization, transcending this organization nationally. People, probably more people dislike him than like him because, first they're being fed a crock of shit most of the time, and like they're not being told the whole story and don't know too much about Kyler Murray. And it's unfortunate, but also I think that there is some truth to it. There's something in the middle as far as, he obviously, this is something that you and I have been on record. Like, he does need to take a step forward as far as leadership. Now, as far as what Monti Ossenfort feels about Kyler Murray, he did mention him today. It was mostly about, him getting back on track. This is Monti Ossenfort talking about the Arizona Cardinals franchise quarterback, Kyler Murray.
Yeah. Well, I think the first order of business there is Kyler's got to get healthy, and we want to do everything in our power to help him get healthy. We want to see him out on the field. I'll go back to that game 2 years ago in Nissan. I've seen what a healthy Kyler can do. I did a lot of work on Kyler coming out of Oklahoma. I know that he is extremely talented with both his legs and his arm. And so, that does represent a challenge for us. We'll be ready for it. But the first order of business is getting Kyler healthy and helping him in whatever manner that is possible.
Pretty simple, right? I mean, but look, this is a guy to open the season in 2021, got a first look at Kyler Murray playing at an MVP level out of the gates. What was it?
Maybe
was it 4 total tutties? Was it 5 total tutties?
5.
I mean, he was playing out of his mind. He knows what he's capable of. He said he scouted him heavily. That's kind of interesting to me that he was scouting him in 2019. He would have been a member of the Patriots organization. So Bill Belichick and that Pats organization had an eye on Kyler Murray. That's a testament to the talent right there. They're going to do everything within their power. So you're already just kind of realizing through just what he's saying there that he's a Kyler Murray fan, and the biggest key here is getting him back on track, getting him healthy, then getting him back on track.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to get to the super chat from our guy Picking Spreads, $1.99. Thank you so much, Picking Spreads. What are the chances we hire someone not named Sean Payton, Brian Flores, or Vance Joseph? I would say probably like maybe 20, 25%, because right now you can eliminate Vance Joseph. We believe that definitively. Sean Payton's in the mix, but it's gone dark right now. Flores is the favorite, but like they're still supposed to interview DeMeco Ryans. Whether that happens or not, we will see. And then Michael Bidwell and Monti Ossenfort talked about it today. Like they're going to interview people from playoff coaching staffs. Now, is that just DeMeco Ryans? That remains to be seen. So I don't think you can cross off a fourth or fifth candidate completely. We just need to be patient here because, again, the GM job, those got filled, but none of the head coaching jobs have been filled yet. I would imagine we're going to see hirings over the course of the next 2 weeks. We may see guys come in multiple times. There may be final interview job or opportunities. $1.99 super chat, Lil Dreadsy 13. Hey, you guys, would you rather have Ryan or Flores? Ball, pose that to you. DeMeco Ryans or Brian Flores?
I think I would probably like to have DeMeco Ryans just because of his familiarity with the division, the dominance that his defenses have had against the teams, the Seahawks, the Rams, the Cardinals. Like he knows exactly out of the gates, what is their weaknesses, what their strengths are, and what's going to be the best way to attack the other three teams in this division, in his former team in the 49ers, potentially. I really like DeMeco Ryans. He's an up-and-comer. I just – and it's not like I dislike Flores, but I also, it's the devil you know versus the devil you don't know. Brian Flores, like I said, has some red flags that are very concerning. And I think you could get a Flores type performance from a guy that doesn't have a history of just torpedoing a young quarterback's success early on. I think what the biggest key is leading Kyler Murray out of this funk, getting him to the next step with his leadership qualities. And I think Ryans probably has a little bit of an edge over Flores just based off of, what we know about Flores, and we don't know about Ryans, but what we've seen and what he's done with that defense.
In November, Bo and I put together our top 5 coaching wish list should Cliff Kingsbury be fired. We had the same top 3. Sean Payton, Jim Harbaugh, DeMeco Ryans. Yeah, Bo and I were kind of hedging our bet they would make a change. And thank you, football gods, because it is a new day. It's a new era of Cardinal football. Bo did not have Brian Flores on his top 5 back in November. I did. Not that I knew anything. I don't know anything. All I know is this is a guy. Tell me what you do. Tell me what you've done, right? This is a guy who went to Miami and won 10-9 games. He was 24-18 in his final stretch with the Miami Dolphins. That 2019 Dolphin team, everybody thought was the worst team. Remember, it was tank for Tua.
Yeah.
They were trying to go. They were trying to go winless that year, and he pushed back on that ownership. Miami's like, guy, I'm in charge of this 53-man roster. We're trying to win games right now. And they finished 5-4 down the stretch with a roster that was awful. So again, everybody likes the shiny new toy. And that's what DeMeco Ryans is. Historic defense, number 1 defense, great guy. I'm sure he's going to have a nice career if he becomes a head coach. I've seen Brian Flores do it already. I've seen him prepare for Bill Belichick and Josh Allen and come out victorious with an organization that was probably trying to sabotage him. So what could he do now with a Monti Ossenfort? They have full buy-in, hopefully, of the players and of ownership. You're going to get a long leash here, go to work and build a sustainable winner. That gets me excited. Is it my first choice? No, my first choice will continue to be Sean Payton. Yeah. And I like DeMeco Ryans. I'm disappointed they didn't pursue Jim Harbaugh, but he's back to Michigan now. But I think you could do far, far worse than Brian Flores for a team that doesn't have a quarterback to start next year. And they've got some problems off the field. Come here and clean this shit up, Brian. I'm all for it.
He won 5 games with a roster that shouldn't have had any business winning one, right? No. He won 10 games the next season when nobody thought that they were going to be worth a shit. And then they were over 500 in his final season. And then he was shown the door because of his relationship reportedly souring with Chris Greer. And
hopefully he
Tua
learns
there.
to communicate a little bit better.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And somebody that he's familiar with. I think what we like between, if that's the GM head coach duo, you've got two of the best that have a proven track record of doing more with less. I mean, as far as what Monti Ossenfort and John Robinson did in Tennessee last year, they had a record 91 players suit up for the Titans last year because due to injury, due to COVID, numerous reasons why they had so many players have to suit up and play games for snaps for that team. They won the number 1 overall seed in the regular season and going into the playoffs, and they won the AFC South. They won back-to-back AFC Souths. They couldn't overcome it this year, but a big reason for that is Monti Ossenfort going out there and identifying guys that would work with the coaching staff. He told me today the biggest part of that is finding players that work with what the coaches are trying to do and knowing what that is. And if he's got a relationship with the incoming head coach, it probably makes it even easier.
Jalen Blair, I'm going to tease this question. Johnny, what's the offense going to look like under Flores if he gets the job? He changed OC all 3 years. He was the head coach. Why would an all-pro like Minkah Fitzpatrick demand to trade out, not play for him? Well, I mean, they were together in Pittsburgh this year. I'm going to tell you who I heard.
They were tanking that year they traded him. They were tanking. They weren't playing to win.
Made that decision. I'm going to tell you a name that came to my attention today as somebody that Brian might want to be paired up with. But before I do that, I want to remind everybody right now on DraftKings, the divisional round is on deck. So you should be on deck with DraftKings. All new and existing customers, get this, guys, can take a shot at an even bigger payout with the DraftKings Step Up Same Game Parlays. Boost your NFL winnings with each leg you add up to 100%. Layer that on DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the promo code PHNX. Get this. If you're a brand new customer, all you have to do is bet $5 on any matchup this weekend. Not the money line, or excuse me, not the spread, but the money line. You think San Francisco is going to roll, Philadelphia, Kansas City, $5, get $200 in free bets instantly. You only have to win the bet. $5, you get it. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with the promo code PHNX. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
You guys are lighting it up in the chat. I love it. I saw some draft discussion. I am heading to Mobile, Alabama with our guy Shane in a couple of weeks. We're going to the Senior Bowl down there. Going to hang out, watch the biggest prospects making the jump from the amateur to the pro level, NFL level. We're going to get some insight on that. But when we're traveling, I'll tell you where I'm going. First spot I'm hitting up in the airport, Four Peaks. There's a Four Peaks at Sky Harbor, and I got a couple beers with my name on it, and I guarantee Shane's name on it. We're going to have ourselves a kilt lifter, maybe some wows, maybe an oatmeal stout. I don't know. We're going to get crazy. Maybe an Imperial Hazy. You got the pumpkin porter. You got the hop knot. As far as the options, they're endless. You can check them out, fourpeaks.com, but that's where we're going to be hanging out before we jump on the plane headed to Mobile to check out the draft prospects. Plus, we got some playoff games to watch. Best place to do that, check out the 8th Street Brewery in Tempe, the OG location. Go hang out there. They've got TVs all over the place, great atmosphere, great food. It's not just bar food. It's better than that. It's actually restaurant quality food, delicious food. Like you got the roll, you got the chicken rolls there. You got the chicken tenders. You got the Italian beef beer bread. You can't go wrong with our friends over at Four Peaks. Go get yourself some great food. Go get yourself some great beers and also get some great atmosphere while watching some great games. Four Peaks, check them out. fourpeaks.com. Got to be 21 years or older.
Keeping the conversation going surrounding Arizona Cardinal new GM Monti Ossenfort, and we talked about Brian Flores, Bo Brock, who I think we both right now would consider the favorite or amongst the favorites to be the next head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. And there's some concerns surrounding the fan base, like who's going to run the offense, who's going to take care of Kyler Murray. It's an offensive league. 7 out of the 8 remaining coaches in the postseason, offensive coaches. So it's imperative to get the right guy. 2 names I've heard. So Jim Caldwell is somebody he wanted to hire back in 2018 as his OC. Caldwell is making the circuits right now in hopes of getting another head job, but you would assume to get back in the NFL because he sat out a year or two, he would take an OC job should he not get a head coaching job. Flores has an affinity for Jim Caldwell. And then another name that was floated to me this morning, and I did a little bit of digging, and I think he has just departed from the Crimson Tide at Alabama. He no longer has a coaching page on Alabama's website. Bill O'Brien, offensive savant with Nick Saban and company. Patriots, darling, has a relationship with Ossenfort, has a relationship, obviously, with Brian Flores. Could he be the answer for Kyler Murray? And I know a lot of people are screaming in the comments here, but I mean, like, DeAndre Hopkins probably won't be here anyway. I texted back my buddy who mentioned this to me. I'm like, could Kyler Murray survive Bill O'Brien and Brian Flores? And he goes, laugh out loud, could anybody survive that? So that's a name I've heard. It's not definitive, and I don't have it sourced yet. He's even been fired from Alabama. But that is a name that, listen, it would not shock me if he got at least an interview with his guys. These are his guys now, and it's about connecting the dots. And good hell, at least he wouldn't be. He won a bunch of division titles for the Houston Texans, which of course Ossenfort has a relationship with, and he wouldn't be picking the players. So I'm just throwing that out there.
This is going to be, you and I are going to be, we're probably going to get ratioed for this, but I don't hate it. I really don't.
I don't either.
Look, what he's done the last couple of years in Alabama, which was more of a defensive-minded program, their offense has been the key to their recent success.
With a quarterback similar to Kyler Murray.
Right, no doubt about it. And look, his success, it's undeniable when he was working with Tom Brady. What was his nickname there? Was like Tea Kettle or something like that, because he would lose his shit at the drop of a hat. Him and Tom Brady had some epic back and forth on the sidelines. But it was, at the end of the day, they knew it was for the betterment of the team. Two big time competitors. But obviously there was conversation, or there was questions asked to Monty today, Michael Bidwill, about DeAndre Hopkins. That would cement that DeAndre Hopkins is no longer an Arizona Cardinal. You bring in a guy like Bill O'Brien, where his relationship sour with DeAndre Hopkins in Houston, and he's obviously the guy that traded DeAndre Hopkins out of Houston for one of the most lopsided trades in the history. Like, Bill O'Brien right now is celebrated by Cardinals fans because he was the dope that traded us DeAndre Hopkins.
He's not a GM. He shouldn't have had the power to pick the players.
The problem with hiring Bill O'Brien is the optics of he's already coming in where the fan base feels like they've made their mind up on him, and then he's a fool.
Everybody just take a second. Look at their records when they outside of that last year, after the trade, that torpedoed his NFL career. And he's gone to the college ranks, and he's done some good things. He did good things at Penn State. Like, people aren't made to pick the players. Like, we've seen it now. Like, Cliff Kingsbury is not meant to pick the players. When Ken Wisenhunt got increased power, he was not meant to pick the players. Bruce Arians dabbled a little too much, and that's why we don't have Patrick Mahomes in Arizona. They wanted to go for it. Guys can be good coaches and not be good general managers, not be good personnel guys. And you're even putting him a peg below that. Like, he's not in charge of the 53-man roster. He's not the head coach of the team. I have no problem getting as many experienced ex-head coaches on this staff as possible. The Cardinals, guys, go, if you have it DVR'd, if you got NFL Game Pass, go turn on the first month of the season. There was not a team in the NFL that looked less prepared to play football. That game against the Chiefs was an embarrassment. Cliff Kingsbury, Vance Joseph were utter embarrassing in those opening games. It's like we're looking for just guys to keep it together and be prepared. And then you try to flush in like an influx of talent. I mean, didn't Bill O'Brien got to the divisional round? He won how many AFC South titles with the Houston Texans with a bunch of dirtbag quarterbacks, not literally, but figuratively. So again, let's just take a breath. It's not the name. And I agree. Brian Flores will have question marks, one of which, who's running the offense, Brian? But if he gets an interview, do not be surprised.
I look, I'm going to say this for the chat. I just think that as far as the Jim Caldwell, Bill O'Brien, you got to do me something better than that. As far as the offensive play callers, like
who are you going to get then? If your head coach is your DC/CEO,
Jim Caldwell, last time he was in the league was 2017. It's been far too long. Yeah. We've seen that the offensive concepts. Had
a winning record though.
I know, it was a long time ago. That was 5 years ago.
So you're saying you'd rather go pluck like a tight ends coach? The dude from Minnesota that has a relationship with Brian Flores was his co-OC in Miami. He's under Kevin O'Connell now, or whatever his name is, whatever. And you'd rather go pluck like a quarterback's coach from one of these teams?
I think I like Todd Monken. I like that from our guy Derek. I mean, that's not he's a trendy name right now. What he was able to do with Georgia. Look, I'm just saying right now, like Brian Flores. I think probably more than half of the fan base would like Brian Flores as the next head coach. But to take guys like Caldwell, who we haven't heard from a half a decade ago, and now you've got a guy like Bill O'Brien, who's kind of a laughingstock, especially in this area because of how he kind of gift wrapped the Cardinals, DeAndre Hopkins. I think that's just a tough sell. I would like them to provide a couple more options than that. And shame on me for not having a name, but I always like to see some up and coming play callers that are maybe a little bit not as long in the tooth as those guys. Those guys, I'm sure their experience is undeniable. But give me somebody, give me the next version of Ben Johnson. Give me the next version of Shane
Everybody
Steichen.
wants that. Everybody wants that.
Yeah,
everybody wants
but you're not going to get that if you go get some retreads. You're not going to be able to find that if you're just going back to some guys who had some success last time in the NFL ranks far too long ago, in my opinion.
I think I just like the idea of either of those people because they've been head coaches before and they can help with Brian's ability to lead. And I also feel like those two styles of offense would work really well with Kyler Murray. What I remember from Jim Caldwell and what he did in Detroit with Matthew Stafford. But I'm not opposed to anything. I listen, Brian Flores is not going to be everybody's cup of tea.
For your sake, I would holster that one for a while. I would put that one away for a while.
What, the Bill O'Brien one?
Yeah. I don't disagree.
I quote tweeted the potential firing with just a couple. I threw a couple things out there, and people are like, "No, Johnny, no." Just connect the dots. Now, it is reported Pro Football Talk thinks he's the primary OC for Bill Belichick in New England, and that would probably make more sense. But we'll see. We'll see if Brian Flores can put a staff together. We'll see if he even becomes the next head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. You can get those odds right now on DraftKings. I like this comment from Monti Ossenfort. We're building a team. We're not building a collection of talent, which I think is a direct shot at the last regime. Because we talked about on yesterday's show, it's like, let's trade for D-Hop and Hollywood Brown and Zach Ertz and re-sign James Conner and get AJ Green, and we're just going to out-athlete everybody. And then the games had to be played, and they were horseshit on offense. And then we watch these teams like the Ravens get to the playoffs, and they don't have a fraction on paper that the talent the Cardinals have, a quarterback and wide receiver, etc. That to me, like, you need a sustainable plan that one injury does not catapult your season. And we saw DeAndre Hopkins get suspended in May, and the Cardinals and Cliff Kingsbury literally never recovered from that.
No, yeah, they didn't. Let's get to a couple of the other clips from Ossenfort where he kind of breaks down his thoughts as far as team building. Let's just take a look at Monty and his thoughts on scouting players.
Well, I think more importantly, I think we're going to change the process, and I think that's what we're going to focus in on initially. There's going to be things that I don't know what was done here previously. I have a system that I believe in, and that's where we're going to focus our time and attention, and how we go about scouting players and what we're looking for specifically. First, we have to define what we're looking for, and then we're going to turn over every rock that we can to build this roster. In terms of the people that are here, I know some of the people. I don't know others. I am fresh off the plane last night. I think there's a lot of evaluation that has to go across all levels of the football organization, and we'll cross that bridge. But I think most importantly about it is the processes and the systems in place for evaluating those players.
Which is music to your ears, right? It was to your point. I mean, they just weren't getting enough out of the previous regime. Like the new leadership, they want to evaluate everything and then see if there's anything, worth holding on to. That means scouting department, front office personnel, the roster, who's on the roster. I mean, he's going to go through everything with a fine-tooth comb and make sure that the Arizona Cardinals are doing everything right. Now, is that a much longer play than everybody wants? I mean, you're thinking basically Sean Payton and expediting the rebuild, but that's a longer play for more sustained success potentially. But, and also part of that, when he talks about how he doesn't know anybody and he's going to evaluate everybody in that building, I mean, I think that goes to, who was there, who was holding on to the interim tag, the co-GMs, guys who were at the back of the press conference, Quentin Harris and Adrian Wilson. It'd be interesting to see what their future is. But, I mean, it's as far as what Monty wants to do is he wants to instill his process and have the Arizona Cardinals take on that. And it's going to be a complete facelift of this organization and what we know of it right now.
What was the comparison? The colander, right? When you're making pasta and you don't get all the water out, right? He needs the colander of this franchise. What's worth sticking around? He talked about Budda Baker, right? Certainly a building block. He says, I want to emphasize or put words in his mouth, but we want to emulate Budda Baker, the player, as a team. And why wouldn't you do that? But like, what else is going to slip through the cracks? What's going to be worth keeping around? We got people in the chat, Bucky Bird saying, sweep out most of the scouting department if you truly want change. And listen, scouts make no money. They travel all the time. They've got families. This team's not good at drafting players. So if he came in and said, yeah, I'm going to gut 75% of the scouting department, most Cardinal fans would understand why. Not good in the mid to late rounds, right? Their hit rate with Steve Keim, 10 to 15% in the first round. Like at least what we've seen so far, dating back to 2013 and Jonathan Cooper and on and so forth. And I would argue Rod Graves, even before that, was very spotty. I mean, this team, it's amazing the success that this team has had, the limited success with being as bad as they've been in the draft. So I think that's the biggest hurdle that we've overcome here in this 8-day span since they've let go of Steve Keim, is finding somebody external to come in and run the show.
Yeah, I asked Monty today, I was like, you're probably not too familiar with drafting as high as 3rd overall, 15 years in New England, 3 pretty decent seasons in Tennessee with the Titans, and ask him, what's his approach going to be to 3rd overall pick? This is what he had to say.
The benefit is that we're going to be ready to pick a premium player that's going to be able to come in here and have an impact on our team. That's the benefit. The other benefit is there could be calls on that pick, and we're going to operate at every step along the way. We're going to do what's best for the team. And so if we get a chance to drop back and pick up additional picks that'll help build the team, we're going to entertain that. But we're in a great position, and I would say the same for the every pick of that round. There's going to be action. The phone rings in the draft. The phone will ring, and we'll be ready to take a good player, and we'll be ready to listen to offers too. So we're in a great position with that pick.
It's a good problem to have, right? I mean, trying to decide if you want to stick and pick and take that premium player, that Will Anderson, that Jalen Carter, or do you want that quarterback hungry team to pick up the phone and say, hey, we're going to give you a future first, or we're going to give you a 2 and a 3 just so we can move up there. I mean, it's for the first time in too long, the Arizona Cardinals have a good problem to have.
They absolutely do. And another quote that stuck out to me is, I think I posted on my Twitter, basically talking about his need for I think it was a complete organizational alignment.
Yeah.
And specifically like with their draft picks. It's like, how many times did they take a player in April and then they didn't see the field? If I'm Monti Ossenfort, I look at Vance Joseph and I'm like, hey, Vance, with all due respect, like I'm going to take players and I don't trust you to play them. I don't trust you to develop them.
Yeah.
The Zaven Collins debacle, where the team went on record in a press conference, Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim saying he will not redshirt. And Vance Joseph literally played him 12% of the snaps as a rookie last year. I mean, it's a joke.
It will blow you away. An outsider, somebody following this organization closely, it blows them away equally. Like it's shocking. It's just shocking, but it's refreshing to hear a guy like Monti Ossenfort to say, hey, we're going to scout these guys. We're going to have a plan in place for them. We're going to know what direction we want to go immediately with these guys, instead of like, oh, Isaiah Simmons, he's versatile. I love that.
Fun.
We fucking love versatile guys. Let's just get it. And we'll find a role eventually.
Oh my God.
No, it's first off the bat, he's going to learn a single position. He's going to have on a down by down basis. He's going to know exactly what he needs to do. Instead, the Arizona Cardinals had him drinking out of a fire hose for 3 seasons. He had no idea what he was supposed to do. He's a jack of all trades, but master of nothing. So the Arizona Cardinals, it's refreshing to hear that Monti Ossenfort, he's got a plan in place as far as, scouting these players, drafting and developing them. That hasn't existed for sure the decade that Steve Keim was the GM of this team.
Yeah. Right now you can draft your own team, by the way. If this is giving you an itch to go and draft some players, you're seeing what Monti Ossenfort is doing with the Cardinals, is saying all the right things. Dabble on Underdog Fantasy. They do daily fantasy differently, Bo Brock. We're pivoting from year-long fantasy. We're on to daily fantasy, whether it's the NBA, where you can pick up to 6 players with no positional limits if you've got your eye on the divisional round this weekend. Like, I don't know, will Dak Prescott hit the higher in touchdowns? Will old Brock Purdy hit the higher, hopefully in interceptions? You can gamble on all that and more using the Underdog Fantasy app. It's so easy to get started, friends. Go to underdogfantasy.com or download the app to your phone. Sign up with promo code PHNX. You got to use the promo code PHNX. Underdog is going to match your first deposit up to $100. So put in $100, boom, you get out $100 right now. I know everybody's been asking, rightfully so, what's up with Underdog Fantasy? Is it legit? Do you use it? I use it regularly. I'm always in contact with my buddies, with my friends saying, let's do a draft tonight. Let's have some action on, Minnesota Timberwolves taking on, Charlotte, whatever. Let's have some fun in the NBA. We got the Suns, Golden State. Let's have some fun. Let's make it interesting, because right now Suns are taking in the teeth. So I got to make, outside of PHNX Suns that make it interesting, I got to find other ways to get me excited about the Suns right now. I'm doing it the right way via Underdog Fantasy. Again, promo code PHNX. Get in on the action today.
Speaking of taking it in the teeth all season, I can see why you moved on from the season-long fantasy and you wanted to go daily, buddy.
We're punting on that for now. You know what? This is going to make me better long term.
It's kind of convenient. I walked in right when you were talking about fantasy football. I was like, who the fuck is this guy talking about fantasy football?
Saul just wants to rub it in that he was our champion, right? He was our year-long fantasy. He's the Monti Ossenfort. You're the Steve Keim, right? You just can't find that sustained success.
That. You've done that twice this week. Call me Steve Keim. Come on now.
Let's talk about more good problems to have. When you're trying to figure out, do you want the indica? Do you want the sativa? You're looking for the right gummy. Well, I'll tell you one thing's for sure. OG's Brands has the right gummy for you. All of their products that you want, you can find the right product for you, whether it's the flavor that you want. You like raspberry orange, you like orange creamsicle, you like maybe blackberries and cream. They've got their brand new strawberries and cream flavor, which is unbelievable. Or you're looking for something else. Maybe you don't want to have a fun time. You want to get some sleep for the first time. They got their Sleep Time gummy. It's an aquaberry flavor. It's unbelievable. It helps put you to sleep and keep you to sleep. Also, they've got their brand new Happy Balance Ratio flavor. As I mentioned, strawberries and cream. You can find something for everyone. You can always find them on their website, ogsbrands.com. Find them on Instagram as well, at ogsbrands, OGEEZbrands.com. Got to be 21 years or older. You can find them in your local dispensary. Strawberries dropping at the end of this week. The wait, it's almost over.
Antonio in the chat. Johnny's in charge of the Parasite House now. I'm not sure what that means. Here there was a funny bit today. I don't know if you saw this, but Nick Sirianni basically said that they watched the wild card matchup this weekend, and they ordered Pizza Hut pizza, stuffed crust. And I said everybody's dogging him. People in New York are dogging him. And I'm like, my advanced palate here in Maricopa, I love stuffed crust pizza, and I love Pizza Hut stuffed crust pizza. So that probably surprised me.
I feel for you, my guy. That's rough. Sirianni though likes the cheesy crust.
You don't like fan. You can put Pizza Hut aside for a sec. You don't like cheese in your crust. You're not into that.
Nah, no. I like real pizza.
All right, that's
gimmick. If you do it right, if you have like good dough and good ingredients, you don't have to put cheese in the crust. It tastes good without that. I can get on board with like garbage pizza for sure. There's a time and place for it.
If they hire Sean Payton and we have to do our watch along of that movie on Netflix with Kevin James, maybe I'll bring a pie. Maybe I'll bring.
I think that's what the reference was. I think it was the movie Parasite. I haven't seen it, so the reference was over our head.
I haven't either. Heard it was good. Won the Oscar last year. Let's get to some more of these comments here. Bucky Bird asking, guys, does Flores run a 3-4 or 4-3 defense? I believe he runs a 3-4 defense.
Yeah, I mean, we're a year removed from watching the guy run a defense. So it's a great question. I mean, you're seeing more and more coordinators. They've got their base, but at the same time, it's a kind of an amoeba. Like you're seeing guys move around. I would think that the Arizona Cardinals would probably, I mean, they could pivot off of a 3-4, which they've been playing for so long since Wilkes departed. And then before that under BA and Betcher and Todd Bowles. But, you look at the linebackers that they have, you probably would stick with the 3-4.
Right now, DraftKings top odds to be the next Arizona Cardinal head coach, Sean Payton, still atop plus 350, along with Brian Flores, plus 350. Vance Joseph lingering around at plus 450. He's going to get the first interview. I'm We've talked enough about that. Shane Bowen, who's the DC in Tennessee, I guess just based on his relationship with Monty, plus 500. That wouldn't do a lot for fans. DeMeco Ryans still plus 750. Then there's a big jump to Ben Johnson. Again, we're another announcement of a head coach being interviewed or potential for those odds to jump. And at one point, I think Vance Joseph was the favorite. He has now dropped to third or fourth. So again, the speculation, I want to go back to this quickly around Sean Payton and the frustration that the fan base has. Look at this guy right here, JJ Watt. If you remember those conversations or lack thereof in February of
for our podcast listeners, you're pointing to a toy.
Here's a bobblehead of JJ Watt. Listen where I'm going with this for a second. No one thought he was going to Arizona. Nobody. Yeah. Everybody thought he was going to the Packers. He was going to the Patriots, the Steelers to play for his brother. Then he broke the news himself. And until Sean Payton tells the Cardinals no or another team yes, it's on the table. It's on the table. Right. And I just let's pump the brakes on any anonymous tweets or speculatory
tweets. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I just feel like let's just pump the brakes. I know
we've hit pause on it for right now. We're not killing it. We're not killing it. It's not over. Just because, like I said, it's like trying to get two friends of yours that don't know each other and get them together at the same time and hope that they like each other. But it's an educated guess, right? You're taking some things where, Monti Ossenfort likes this and Sean Payton's known to like this. I mean, they're both football guys. They're both passionate about, taking organizations that have been down and getting them back on top and getting them going the right direction. So, yeah, I think that's what they're going to have in common. And I don't think that a hire like Monti Ossenfort takes them out of the running. Does it take them out just because Michael Bidwell wasn't going to just hand the keys of the franchise to Sean Payton? Sure, but I don't know if that's the smart move. Of course, you want to do everything within your power, but like I said, like with the Joe Gibbs comp, like that didn't work out too well for Washington the second time around. It's just go ahead.
We've never seen Sean Payton pick the players. I mean, they have good drafts every year in New
collaborated.
Orleans for a reason.
He always collaborated with Mickey Loomis.
Yeah. They've had he and Jeff Ireland. It's like a 3 or 4 man team there.
Yeah.
And who's to say that he couldn't have that same team here with Monty Williams and some other guy, Monti Ossenfort and some other people. There's no reason that they couldn't go out and do that. And like Jordan P said, you think Monti Ossenfort's gonna, balk at the idea of bringing in Sean Payton? Of course not.
No.
He's been around Bill Belichick. He's been around Mike Vrabel, guys who are very comfortable in their own skin, commanding a room and getting the most out of their football team. What does that sound like? Sounds
Belichick,
like Sean Payton.
Vrabel, those are the coaches and you think he's going to have an issue with Sean Payton?
I would think that's a nice pitch for Sean, that he's got these guys in his back pocket as people he can go to bat for and references.
And Ossenfort's comments saying they want to be a unified front, right? They want to have this incredible synergy from top to bottom. And I mean, you're not going to do that by digging in and saying, "Hey, I'm the GM. I make all the decisions here." Right. I mean, that's not what Ossenfort. That's not a successful way for the Cardinals to move forward out of this.
Yeah, it just draft good players, be disciplined, stay out of the news cycle. I mean, it sounds
phenomenal
easy.
Coach. Those were his words about Sean Payton. He just hasn't met him yet, and that's unfortunate. I mean, it's not the ties, it's not the connecting the dots that we thought we liked or thought we heard yesterday. That unfortunately, Monty debunked right to my face today. He doesn't know Sean Payton. There's no tie between him and the Big Tuna and Bill Parcells. Bill Parcells' name wasn't mentioned once. He went down a long list of people that he was thankful for that got him to this today. 22 years in the NFL, GM spot.
Do you have a sense of what this team is going to do with DeAndre Hopkins? Do you think DeAndre Hopkins is all but gone from the Arizona Cardinals? Because there's still people out there, a large chunk of the fan base, Bo, that hope DeAndre Hopkins is on this team next year. And I don't think that you're in the wrong for thinking that, but I go to DraftKings right now. Cardinals are plus 2,000 to be his next team. And then you've got the Packers at plus 350, the Patriots at plus 450 now. Patriots have really jumped up the board. Chiefs plus 500, Giants plus 750. I mean, I heard that today, and if I'm Monti Ossenfort talking about team, and you got a guy who's missed time, who's expensive, I feel like if you're asking me, I think DeAndre Hopkins has played his last snap for the franchise.
Johnny, I put $100 on him to come back to the Cardinals today, just so you know.
Did you really?
At plus 2,000. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to pass that up.
good living.
It
if you
is
can
crazy
get it
that he's
right
that
now.
big of a long shot. That is nuts. That's like the opposite of Cliff Kingsbury, like where it was like minus 700 at one point that he was going to be out, where it wouldn't have been even a smart bet to go against it. I mean, it was like Alabama versus Samford. It was just unbelievable underdog. But that, I mean, yeah, I don't have any problem with that, because we've said it before. Would it be mutually beneficial for the Cardinals to trade DeAndre Hopkins, maybe restructure or figure out his contract, his cap hit, his dead money, and then get draft assets for him in return, and he gets to go play for a contender? Sure. But at the same time, if you can't get what you want, the worst case scenario, you have a wide receiver one on your team.
We got breaking news here from Dan Graziano of ESPN. Former Colts coach Frank Reich interviewed today with the Arizona Cardinals for their vacant head coaching opening. Bo Brock. Frank Reich, former Colts head coach, got them to the postseason with Phillip Rivers before being fired by that crazy person, Jim Irsay. Was interviewed today by, I would assume, by Monty and Michael Bidwell, maybe after the presser, maybe before. I'll give you my take on it, but at first, Bo, I want to ask, what are your thoughts on that? Are you pro Frank Reich getting an interview, or is that damaged goods? You don't want to touch that?
No, I mean, he's had some decent success. Most of it's come as a coordinator. Obviously he early on in Carson Wentz's career, he was a big part of his success, but it's been a long time since that. That was 2017, that Super Bowl run for that Philly team. And then they were okay in Indy. There was nothing crazy that they did that said, oh, Frank Reich is a guy that's going to, elevate rosters and get them to where they want to go, because they clearly didn't do that when he was with Indianapolis. I'm not a big fan of retreads, and I think he's the number one name as far as retreads go. And I wish, I hope with this new direction that this organization is going, that they're not going to go and take some cast off from another struggling organization. I don't think it was all of Frank Reich's fault as far as the Colts are concerned. If that conversation turns into nothing comes out for Frank Reich as far as returning as a head coach, do they return to him after they've hired somebody else and say, hey, what are your thoughts on maybe being the offensive coordinator? I don't hate that at all. So
Right.
He's had some pretty impressive guys come out from under him, including, cheese crust Nick Sirianni in Philadelphia. So, yeah, I mean, I don't hate that they're talking to him. That's the wide net. You're going to have a couple, shrimp or tires that are going to be caught up in that net. You're not going to catch all the big fish that you want. And I think Frank Reich is kind of more of the former than the latter as far as casting that net.
I can tell you definitively, people within the Cardinals organization love Frank Reich. They love him. He was part of the Ken Wisenhunt staff once upon a time.
Yeah.
He was fired with that staff. He's got a lot of respect in that building. And he went 10-6, 7-9, 11-5, 9-8, and then 3-5-1 this year with an owner who meddled. He is not my first choice. I would probably rather have Brian Flores than Frank Reich as the head coach. Now, a tandem of Flores and Frank Reich, or DeMeco and Frank Reich, sign me up for that, because I think he's got that calming presence. I mean, shit, he made Carson Wentz. I think he threw single-digit interceptions last year and almost 30 touchdowns.
Yeah.
He came into State Farm Stadium last year on Christmas Day and almost beat the Cardinals, almost won the division. So I don't think this is a nothing throwaway interview. I think he's somebody that the Cardinals like, but I think, to your point, Bo, this feels very much like, hey, can we circle back around?
Yeah.
Do you want the OC job? Can we pay you a premium to come be our OC? Can you be the Vance Joseph to Cliff Kingsbury, where we bring you in, we pay you good money, and you work side by side? Like Vance was the CEO of the defense, and Kingsbury didn't meddle with the defense, whereas Flores, maybe he wouldn't meddle with the offense as much outside of being a confidant with Kyler Murray. Maybe it's all Frank Reich. I don't hate that mindset. And it's K1 just put in the chat, when his quarterback, who were never mobile, I mean, he was dealt a tough hand by Irsay. He's not picking the players. Frank Ballard was doing that. Now, he lobbied for Carson, but I would argue he got the most out of Carson from anybody recently.
I mean, that Super Bowl season, Carson tore his ACL at the end of the year, but he was the MVP until that 33 touchdowns, 7 picks. I mean, and he was doing it with his legs too. He was the best version of Carson Wentz, and the main reason for that was Frank Reich. It wasn't Doug Peterson. It was Frank Reich. He was the one that was given the flowers for that. But what's interesting about these guys is, as far as the two candidates we've talked about outside of Sean Payton today, Brian Flores and Frank Reich, is that they would both be candidates, regardless of who the head coach is, to join this organization. I mean, you've got Reich, who, if he doesn't get any real traction as far as returning as a head coach, is that OC option. And then Brian Flores is not a DC right now. That's Terrell Austin in Pittsburgh.
Right.
It's not, he's got, like, I would be shocked if he just returned to his old job with the Steelers. I think Mike Tomlin would be shocked if he returned to his old job, because currently he's the senior defensive assistant and linebackers coach. Like, he's not even the head of that defense. Like, I think there's a very realistic chance that you could get him as a defensive coordinator, let him run the defense. So if just by talking to these guys doesn't mean, like, it's not the Cliff Kingsbury conversation. Hey, this offensive guy, he'd be a great OC. Oh no, he's the head coach. It's like, well, no, you're not just talking to these guys. You're having these conversations because you want to be a better franchise, and these are some top candidates on the market that you can bring in some capacity, and it doesn't necessarily have to be head coach. You could pivot at any point.
Yeah, what fits the puzzle, the best scenario, right? And you get a sense who's the best leader of men when I talk to these guys. And again, I mean, Vance is now in that category, but I don't think either one of us foresees Vance Joseph getting this job. But this is the first real external candidate of note outside of the folks we've been talking about, outside of that foursome, that I think has some steam to it. Because again, if you're Michael Bidwell, he has familiarity with your franchise. And we just talked about getting outside the franchise. Well, he left and had his best success when he was not with you. He left and went on and had a really good run. I think he was the Chargers OC, and he pivoted, or excuse me, yeah, you mentioned that he went to Philadelphia. Then he, of course, got the Colts job. They made it to the playoffs. They almost won a playoff game with 100-year-old Phillip Rivers. Their offense was very run-dominated, right? And so you talk about getting the most out of his quarterback play. It's not my first choice. I would rather have Brian Flores, because I think this organization needs somebody like that, but I know a lot of people disagree in that, and that's fine. Would I have a problem with it? No, but to your point, it would, even more so than Brian Flores, because I think most people felt like Brian was inexplicably fired. Like, that came out of nowhere. Whereas, like, Frank Reich was on the hot seat when this year began, and he got fired 8 games in.
Remember how bad Jacksonville was last year, and they just needed to beat the Jags to get into the playoffs, and they lost? They completely just choked, and that was the beginning and the end. I mean, that was the Cardinals in Detroit last season, in the 2021 season, where it was just like the start of things just unraveling. And that's what happened with Frank Reich. And I think he's well respected around the league. If you watched last year's Hard Knocks, you got to kind of get a glimpse at who he is behind the scenes, what type of leader he is. I think you would probably, if you haven't seen it yet, I think you would probably be, you would like what you see. But at the same token, we know who he is so far. He's had his opportunity. Reich, Flores, they're fine. Obviously, we have our eyes set higher for the Arizona Cardinals. I think that's just where we are. We would like them to, because we view this as one of the premium openings. They're atop the trash heap as far as the 5 franchises that are looking for a head coach. And why would, it's surprising to me. It's just the first one. I'm sure there's no like rhyme or reason like who they're getting in the door. They're going to interview. They're still going to get their interviews with some top candidates. And I would like them to have, potentially second interviews and then also secure one of the top candidates instead of, like, I think things would have to go. I can't imagine that he's their first call or want as far as their head coach.
I think this also throws ice on the fire. The people that are saying Cardinals are so playing this. Like, this is just now getting out. Everybody pump the brakes on the Cardinals are taking too long. None of these jobs have been filled yet. No. And this is the hiring cycle for the reason. We're in this cycle right now. And here's the great news for everybody stressing out over that. There were 10 openings last year. Barring something completely unforeseen, there are only 5 openings this year. And most of them are in the AFC. I mean, to me, I would feel really good about that if I'm Michael Bidwell, saying, I have so much going for me as a franchise right now, maybe not a month ago, but right now, the 3rd overall pick, cap space, right? A GM who's open-minded to whatever we want to do, having a partnership with my new head coach, etc. And did I mention you're going to have some draft capital potentially coming your way if you want to start anew without DeAndre Hopkins? You're going to be able to give that person the opportunity. If the coach comes in and says, no, I want D-Hop on the team, I want to integrate him in my offense, well, let's have that conversation. So it's just everything's on the table. We should not be surprised by this one iota. But again, maybe tomorrow would be a good opportunity, Bo, to maybe rank how these interviews or these coaching prospects stand with the fan base, with us, what we feel like is the upper tier, middle tier, maybe a lower tier, as we continue to get more information. K1 in the chat, Cardinals need to interview Ben Johnson and Shane Steichen. Who's to say they don't? Who's to say they haven't already? We're just getting this information now as it comes out.
Yeah, and that seemed like, as far as that process, you probably felt like, hey, they're behind the 8 ball a little bit. But this is something that, Ossenfort laid out today. I mean, he got off the plane last night, was at the press conference today, and then was going to get right to work. And it sounds like I wouldn't be shocked if they didn't do their VJ interview today. Talk to Reich, probably talk to Vance Joseph either today or tomorrow, and hopefully get a couple guys on the docket for the rest of the week, including Sean Payton. Let's get it going here.
Let's get it going. You need to get it going at gophnx.com. Become a diehard today. 20% off all future events. You get a certain percentage off of merchandise, but you get a hat or shirt for free when you sign up every single year with the Die Hard package at gophnx.com. Pick up one of these lids, pick up one of these tees, celebratory tee, Bo Brock, rocking the black on black at the PHNX merchandise locker. We've got a ton of exclusive content you can't get anywhere else. And get this, 90% of it is free to go read right now. Our guy, Gerald Bourguet, cranking out hot fire on the Phoenix Suns and company. Check out what this team's going to do ahead of the trade deadline. I believe Arizona Sports Writer of the Year, Craig Morgan, works for gophnx.com. Check out his work. It is unparalleled surrounding the NHL. And then we got a really fun matchup tonight with the PHNX Coyotes kicking it off. And I'm sure Craig and company, PD, producer Leah, are going to have a blast covering that game. We've had a blast today, Bo Brock. And this party continues to churn as we enter now what I believe is we've got the first piece of the puzzle with Monty, and now we need the rest of the puzzle filled out with whomever is going to be running this team.
And those dominoes are going to fall quickly. I mean, we already just heard a surprise head coach candidate was interviewed in Frank Reich. If you want more from the Monty press conference stuff that you didn't get to see, that wasn't, streamed live to everybody, we're going to have that coming to you. You've got to be subscribed to PHNX_ here on YouTube. Set up the alerts. They're going to fire that clip off. It's got a couple questions and answers with Monti Ossenfort, talking just different ins and outs as far as what his plan is to get this organization back to being relevant, back to winning football, his background, and what he's looking forward to with this organization. Make sure you're checking it out here on our YouTube channel. That's coming up, I would say, within the next 20 to 30 minutes, but have those alerts set up so as soon as it fires off, you can catch that insight from the new GM and architect of the Arizona Cardinals, Monti Ossenfort.
Do me a hot favor, like this video. If you're all in on Sean Payton, like this video, subscribe to PHNX Sports on YouTube. Check us out every day. We're live, 4 p.m. Bo Brock, Johnny Venerable, your premier Arizona Cardinal podcast, the PHNX Cardinals podcast. We're enjoying our best month to date. Huge thank you to all of you. Huge thank you to producer Leah. We are back mañana. Until then, be well, everybody.